Okay, so the reading from Emmett Fox for 14 December, the title Is That Your Hat? And he writes, why has not your prayer been answered? Perhaps it has. Strangely enough, it often happens that we receive an answer to our prayer and do not recognize it. Some of us have had demonstrations in our possession for weeks or months and have not known it. This mistake is caused by outlining. We have unconsciously decided that the demonstration, in other words, the answer to the prayer, must take a particular form. And because that form does not appear, we think we have failed. Actually, we probably have an even better demonstration than we expected, but for the moment, we are blind to it. If a boy prayed for a man's hat because he thought it would look good on him or make him look grown up, he would not get it, since divine wisdom knows he could not wear it. He would get a good hat of this sort that would be useful to him. We often pray for things for which we are not really prepared. But if we pray scientifically, this will not matter, since creative intelligence will send us the thing that we really need. Seek God for his own sake, for the joy of being with him, and the demonstrations will take care of themselves. And the quote, and it's an identical quote in the Lobster translation, I will be glad in the Lord. And that's Psalm 104, verse 34. So this is our third week and final week talking about the Nicene Creed. And there's only one stanza left, but it leads to a whole bunch of other stuff that fits right in with something I want to share about Bob Vogel's remembrance ceremony yesterday. One of our church members died, and we had the remembrance ceremony yesterday. So, let me read the final stanza of the Nicene Creed. It reads, I believe in one holy, Catholic, and apostolic church. I confess one baptism for the forgiveness of sins, and I look forward to the resurrection of the dead and the life of the world to come. Okay, so now, we all know what traditional churches do with this. They treat it as literal. But now let's take a look at how the metaphysical approaches it. For instance, one church, unity defines church to mean a diverse spiritual movement rather than a single creed-bound institution. So one church includes all of us who are walking a spiritual path. It is defined by the emphasis on a universal inner spiritual reality, metaphysics in other words, and the belief that each person is a unique expression of God. Okay, I can go with that definition of one church. I can accept holy because we are all built of God stuff. I can accept Catholic in the sense of all-embracing, as opposed to what so many people do. Apostolic refers to the teachings of the apostles. Well, there I have a problem, because we really don't know what the apostles actually understood and taught. You know, we think we know from what's taught from the biblical writings, but they were all filtered by post-apostle writers who had specific agenda and were writing based at best on oral histories and were, by and large, part of this Orthodox Christian sect, as opposed to all the other groups of believers who had very different understandings of what Jesus had taught. But we can use the apostles' general behavior and the more recent interpretations of teachings by Elaine Pagels, for instance, or Bart Ehrman, as a teaching tool. The apostles gave up their own tightly held beliefs as much as they were able, and the Bible recounts struggles that they had, to learn new spiritual truths. Okay? That's where we all are, I think. We're working to give up our tightly held beliefs that may have no basis in the real experience of the divine, and instead trying to find what the truth is there. Now, baptism. Well, George Fox, the Quakers, unity, to me, understood correctly that baptism is a symbolic internal process of spiritual awakening, of spiritual cleansing. In other words, in contrast to traditional Christian churches, it is not a simple ritual to wash away your sin because you were born in sin. As far as I know, everybody I've mentioned believes that we come into this world as innocent spirits. And it's our experiences here in this world. Certainly, the lift-on therapy that I do follows that. The Quakers do, and Unity does. So you don't need to wash away your original sin because you didn't have it. And remember that the Aramaic translation of sin is missing the mark. That's all. So, therefore, George Fox, the Quakers, Unity, I suspect our church, though, of course, we don't have an official set of beliefs, except that each of us was born inherently good, that everyone in the world came in inherently good. Hey, world, let's have some fun together. Yay, sort of thing. And then it's the experiences here that claw away from that and mislead us often to missing the mark. So we're talking about, if you will, a mental and spiritual alignment with the divine, where if you do water baptism, it symbolizes the cleaning of our consciousness. And then there's the spiritual baptism, which signifies the inflow of the Holy Spirit, the Great Spirit. Now, bear in mind that other people translate sin as meaning a debt you owe. Well, if you miss your mark, if you fall short of living and acting out of the divine love of which you are a part, because we are all God stuff, then what you're leaving behind, if we look in terms of the Hawkins frequency, 0 to 1,000, we're leaving behind the lower frequency pieces that we've been hanging on to. If I remember correctly, 250 and below is life disaffirming. 250 and above, the higher the frequency, the closer to pure love we achieve. And then, as you open yourself to a closer connection with divine frequencies, the damages from your previous shortcomings, your missing the mark, your misunderstandings, can be uplifted by your higher frequency, your higher energy, the improved radiance of divine love that is you and that you bask in, because now you can accept this divine love coming to you. And similarly, as you open your being wider to all divine love and energy, you'll find that those non-spiritual or anti-spiritual parts of you, the non-love or anti-love pieces of you, are lifted up to a higher level, to a higher frequency. And that's what I think they're talking about when we're talking about resurrection. That you're moving up. You're moving all parts of you to a higher love frequency. And then, finally, they say, looking forward to the life of the world to come. Well, I think those of us here are aware of the next spiritual adventure that we will all ultimately experience when, as Emmett Fox says, well, his statement was, we existed before we entered this body, we continue to exist after this body. And something from Bob Vogel's remembrance ceremony yesterday. His family commented that he was not afraid. that he knew he was moving to something new, a new adventure. And that fits right with what Fox was saying. And I want to sort of make a reminder point. I think earlier this year, or maybe it was last year, we had a session where I shared with you various recountings of reports of what young children told their parents. Oh, I'm buried over there from my last life, sort of thing. Or in my last life, this and this and this happened. Or my name was. And we've had reports from people who had near-death experiences and came back to share. But also understand that different people have had different experiences while their earthly bodies were dead, those who had near-death experiences. Alan Ramsey found himself hovering over his body as the medics tried to bring him back to life. And he was able to tell them when he came back exactly what they'd been doing. And there were many reports like this. Then there are people who recount getting to the other side, seeing all of their loved relatives and pets waiting to greet them before they were told that they had to return. And then there are people selling themselves on the Christian talk circuit who recount how they found themselves in a big mansion with streets paved with gold and some of them being besieged by evil creatures until they called Jesus' name. And then I have a Buddhist friend who, when he was dead, experienced nothing. There was nothing. It was an active non-existence. So, looking at what the Nicene Creed is claiming, looking at it from a metaphysical position, I think we also need to give some thought ourselves to what are we holding on tightly. And given Bob's death and how he was moving forward with calm, with peace, I think it's worth considering how much metaphysics we're going to put into this final piece of the Nicene Creed, how much metaphysics we're actually going to put into our understanding of where we're going next. Because it seems fairly clear to me that what we expect to happen, what our beliefs are, will directly reflect what we expect to find on the other side, and thus what we are likely to find on the other side. And I think, from what they said about Bob, and from, where I'm going, it's worth being open-minded and not defining. And I use as an example a piece I read from the book The Boy Who Saw True, and it's about a long paragraph, but I think it makes the point exquisitely for all of the Nicene Creed, how much metaphysics we care to put into it, how much we care to disagree with it. When it comes to our own existence as spirits, it raises questions, and we can choose our answers. So, the boy who saw true is a little kid who saw dead people. Didn't realize they were dead. Saw the wood spirits. Got into trouble at school. One time he recounts in his diary that he was playing on the playground during a school break, and his teacher's brother came up to him and asked him to tell his teacher that brother was fine. So the kid goes in after recess and goes to the teacher and says, "Your brother was out there on the playground. He asked me to tell you that he's fine." And the teacher starts sobbing and whacking at him. "How dare you play a trick on this? He's been dead for 3 years." So ultimately the kid gets kicked out of school. He ends up with a tutor. The tutor gets it. And so during tutoring times in the afternoon, they'd stop for milk and cookies, and the tutor would ask who the kids saw. And whoever the kid saw, he'd have a conversation that he'd tell the tutor, and then the tutor would make notes and give it back to the kid so he could write it in his diary, because the kid was keeping a diary. He kept his diary from age 6 until he died. We only have a small part of it in a book. This is the part that I want to share with you. And, I prepared this 3 weeks ago before Bob died. What a perfect fit this is. So the kid wrote, I asked grandfather why grandmama never came to see us, because grandfather would come in every so often. And he said something about spirits getting thought-bound, like birds getting egg-bound, which, as I understand from farming, means they can't get the egg out. He told us that while grandmother was still on earth, she reckoned, same as a lot of people do, that she and a few others who thought exactly like she did were the only people that were going to be saved. And now, said Grandpa, she lives in a world of thoughts which she and others have created by their own fallacious convictions. When we asked Grandpa what about him, he said, though he had believed in God and all that, he'd never made up his mind too much what the other world was going to be like. So now he didn't spend his life singing hymns around an imaginary throne of God like Grandma does. He told us Grandma had been an obstinate old woman, and she was still obstinate now, and nothing he could say was going to change her outlook till she got sick of it and began looking around for something better. He told us it was a great mistake to have preconceived notions like my late lamented grandmother. So, word to the wise, shall we say. No preconceived notions. So that's what that last paragraph led me in the Nicene Creed led me to. Open for conversations. And here too, if you want to throw anything, and just wave your hand. Okay. Ellie and then Leah.
You were talking about, I don't remember what term you used, but the all of our parts, accepting all of our parts. And in pagan thought, that would, another name for that would be the shadow self. Those parts of us, okay, you're familiar with the term then. Those parts of us that we've put away for one reason or another. And those parts would be the wounded child, the angry self, the fearful self, shameful self, controlling self, shadow feminine or shadow masculine. All those things that we were as a child or maybe young adult, told that they didn't mean anything, or, we should have been better, all those type of thoughts. But then when those things are integrated, the gifts that they, that we can learn when they're integrated, innocence, creativity, emotional honesty, boundaries, self-respect, protection, courage. So there are the positive things when, we can accept our full self, in that regards. And someone had asked me, what's the practical side of those things? And it's like, well, the woman who created MAD comes to mind, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. She, her child died from a drunk driver, and at the time the attitude was, well, what happened happened. That, I'm sorry, that happened, and that was sad. Well, she took that her anger and grief and sadness and made the organization that we now have today. So certain things could be done. So there's a law now that's on the books because of it. Another example is when we're fearful or scared, we take those things and we use those for strength. to go through something that, you know, may be very scary, or we don't have the strength because we're drained in the positive sense. Anyway, so it was just something that when you were reading that part of it, you know, came to mind, that we need to accept, you know, not only the good or the positive side, but, you know, the other side as well, of ourselves.
Thank you. Leah?
I was just going to say, I have believed in reincarnation, many, many years by now. So what you've got to say is like, yeah, what's so unusual about that? Because I'm so used to it. To me, it is a normal way. And near death experiences, I've heard here and there. But one of the podcasts I listened to, he also has different people on there, of course, talking about what they went through. And it is, to me, yeah, it's interesting because everybody is different on how they believe or this and that, or what lessons they need to learn, or what information they're given. And to be also, when I was age 3, where I tried to commit suicide, an angel came down, talked to me. I mean, so I've known for how many years, and I've noticed lately, because I've always been wanting to go home, but I have done lift with you, Brian, where I had to do where it was okay to stay here on the earth plane. So therefore, I was not tempted or wanting to commit suicide, because to me, it was just another way to get home. And so you had to work through that with me. And so it's like, oh, okay. So now I don't think about, well, it's been a few years now. So I don't think about, suicide, whatever. But I've noticed lately, I want to go home. I'm ready to go home. It's like, yeah, whatever. And I can't really explain it. But while I'm here, I know I have to do what I am meant to do, so dying, it's like, okay, I guess I do need to go through my stuff and get rid of it, because I can imagine my nephew looking at all my junk, my papers just hanging around thinking, yep, and what am I supposed to do with this? So, yeah. So to me, it's like, okay, plus you need to clean out so you can allow new stuff to come in. But yeah, so with you talking about people remembering things, this and that, it's like, yeah, that to me, that's normal. It's the ones that don't think about it or are afraid of it. They're the ones that are not normal because they're living in fear. And I remember about the mad thing. That's, in fact, I had mentioned it to another young guy. Well, Josh, I mentioned to him, he goes, really? He didn't realize that's how we got the law, because it used to be if you got hit by a drunk, oh, well, such is life, where that's why being angry, there's nothing wrong with that, because sometimes we have to go through something like that to help others, protect them, bring in safety, and correct something that is not in the best interest. So yeah, I just really wanted to say I agree with what you say, Brian. It's interesting,
Okay,
and
thank you,
yeah,
Leah.
mhm.
Okay, Lori K.
And then Christy.
Oh, and then Christy. Okay.
The 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 idea about looking at what comes afterwards, I think, is it, the way that it impacts me thinking of this tonight is that the point is being missed by the Nicenes and everything. It's the point is, how do you live? It's not what's waiting for you when you leave. It's how do you live? How do you embody the light that you are? How do you even know that you are, come to that realization of knowing that you're actually not the human first, you're the light first, you're the energy first. And worrying about what comes next stops the expansion of consciousness. And when it comes to baptism, it has absolutely nothing, according to my teacher, Bill Donahue, it has to do with the internal, here, let me read this to you real quickly. It has to do with the rising of the cerebrospinal fluid, the living waters, which are the living waters that move up the spinal column to impact the pineal gland. And so if you use just that explanation of what baptism is, nobody who's had their head dipped underwater has been baptized.
Thank you. Okay, Christy? Gotcha. There
Thank
you
you.
are.
Thank you. I'm trying to find my buttons because I'm off on a chase here. My brain is going because I was looking up Ram Dass because I couldn't remember it. But there was one title, I think. Did he do a book, Be Here Now? Was that the
Somebody
Yeah.
did, yeah.
so I'm going to choke. Maybe I shouldn't talk. So I'm looking at things that are kind of like boom, boom, boom. And Leah, that was beautiful. It's all beautiful. Also, Lori, what the hell? That was just spit. So I'm looking at things that are popping up, and it's really moving my mind into so many ways of expressing. And Leah, you went to MAD, and MAD moved me into a place called HALT, which is very interesting because it's on the 12 steps. HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. What if we just had an acronym to stop to recognize all of these things, bring us back to physical? And the physical place is Be Here Now. So I'm a reductionist in this morning, in that the journey is very fascinating. And no, I don't really always want to be in it, and I question it, and I even talk to my mother a lot. But I do remember the childhood experience, Leah. Thank you, because that was a nice little reminder. Because I would look out the window of our station wagon as we're traveling along, and I was like, I remember being somewhere that felt like it had some serenity that I didn't have as a child. And when I looked off into the distance in my mind's eye, it was a long journey, like in the West, that you would see this long road forever till it disappears into a mountain, and the mountain then rises and you're there. That is a nice memory for me. Thank you, Leah, for bringing back a childhood thing, because I did not feel that I wanted to be here. And I'm going, but one thing provoked another, and then life gets in the way, and then life moves you past the point of understanding why you're here, and it still keeps inventing itself. I appreciate what you said also, Lori, in that we make the mistake of thinking the after. And at the same time, I think we're just having hope that there is some mercy past the point of where we're not happy with being here now, that there is something that will be the glory of happy after. But at the same time, when I rest into it, to realize in every second, we have the opportunity to emit something in that hemisphere. And I put it up in the chat because Jill Bolte Taylor has been a very rise of inspiration for me. And understanding that whatever I think I've known and what she knew, and her heart was at Harvard, her Harvard education absolutely evaporated from a blood clot in that stroke, in her stroke of insight. And you never know what language or dialogue or information you have that's even necessary anymore. And I think sometimes the memory parts of, what is clouding us, or how is our memory disappearing, or what's getting in the way, or I know I'm having memory challenges and I'm not happy with it, but I'm really wanting to play in the right side of my brain. So I'm pulling up creative more. And as I pull up creative more, that's really that settles and serves for what my existence is on a daily basis. If I tip into the other, then it's because I've taken a look at the train wreck, and there's plenty of it to see out there. So I appreciate, it's like this is such a stream of being able to listen and move ahead. And I've written some things down. How do you live? How do you live? Because that time, it's not fine. This is not finite the way we know it, unless something really sparks a new horizon that we continue to move through some kind of a paradigm into whatever dimension, the fifth or whatever. The things that we've kind of gotten a glimmer of, or those people who come back and tell us what an NDE was. But it was based on their person, their personality, their life experience. If you get right into it, that's what their life has been. That's what their glimmer was. Those were their chosen words. That was their land of being. So what is ours? What is mine? What is this moment? And when I woke up this morning, I'm going, oh, I've lost track of days. And today's Sunday. Oh, we're continuing this theme, and I want to be on it, because it's too easy to let things slide. So I like HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And if I check into that, then I'll know if I'm being off color at any point in time, that I've not satisfied what this physical part of me is. And right now I'm really exploring a lot of new artistic ideas, or looking at the videos, or just staying in the saturation of it, because that's the part that's what taught Jill to go back into a linear part. I don't know how she did it. I'm sure she had some assist, but it took that side of the brain to work with the other, to put information back. So the information doesn't exist unless we are feeding it constantly. If you think about it, it disappears when you go to sleep. Thank you.
Anybody else with a contribution?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to just share a little bit about the remembrance ceremony for Bob, which was yesterday at Unity of Garden Park. And a theme that kept resonating with people who spoke about him, and those who got to meet him and be with him. He taught me Reiki. I did 2 Reiki classes with him, and Linda. Linda's his wife, and then Linda Koenig is another Reiki practitioner. And so I knew him also through the June event that was at their church, that our church hosted and theirs did. What was that called?
Harmonious Energies.
Harmonious Energies in June. And so Bob was a big part of those 2 events. But one thing about Bob was Lori, Christy, you were just saying, be here now. That was Bob. He knew how to be present to people. And he, so, if you had a chance to talk with him, one thing somebody said is he always had a pause before he spoke. He wasn't like ready to jump in. He would leave some space. And that was something I remember about him. Also, towards the end, it was mentioned several times that he repeated, as he was in hospice care for a couple of months, I think, before he passed in November. And he just reiterated that love, it's all about love. It's all about love, And he seemed, we didn't get to visit with him. I know he has a large family, and family was around him and helping to care for him in his final days. But he, was very not afraid. I know Brian mentioned that. He was not afraid of what was coming. And one thing that I thought was very interesting is he didn't grow up with a religious background. I had talked with him once. And I felt like he didn't have baggage. He came to understand in the early 2000s he was a chemical engineer. I think that's right, Brian. And he was able to bring. He did not see conflict between science and spirituality. That in his own mind, he was able to talk about, energy and vibrations and things like that. But it did not conflict for him. He seemed to, in my mind, he seemed to have a deep understanding, and spirituality became important to him just in the 2000s here. And he was like 83 when he passed away. But he didn't seem to carry any baggage about previous religious creeds or things that you pick up when you go to church. But anyway, just wanted to share a few things. And there was a sign hanging on the wall, banner, in Unity's church. And one woman got up and said, I'm looking out the window. And we got there, and then it's pouring down snow. So all this, the beginning of all this snow that we have now, and the minister was worried that people wouldn't come. And there was a good crowd there. And the sign, the banner on the wall said, "Love falls down." And this woman said, "I'm looking out the window, watching the snow come down, and I'm seeing that banner, love falls down." And it was just some beautiful moments, and just a remembrance about his love. And you could, at least in my mind, I felt Bob's presence there. And it was a good community gathering. Tears were shed, and I just wanted to share that with you because I know Bob has joined us a lot on Zoom, and always had something to share. So he's here with us now again. So
okay, Ellie had something more to contribute.
To reiterate something that Christy said when she was talking about the one side of the brain helping with the other side. I've actually seen that with Donovan, and for those who don't know who he is, he's my husband, and he's had 3 strokes. But to look at him physically, you wouldn't know that. But the whole mental, everything, the strokes touched was everything mental, and so there's many things that him and I talk about. Either when he reads listens, or when I read books, and I can literally see the one side of the brain helping with the other side. And it's amazing to watch because something will be said, or he'll listen to something which I didn't hear, but then when I read it in one of my books, he will then say, "Oh, I heard." And just to watch the 2 sides, I can literally see it in his face. It's amazing to watch. So Christy, that was, when you said that, and then you said that, information isn't there unless it's introduced. It's amazing to see that. Or when we don't necessarily remember what is there, and then we read it or hear it, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember hearing or seeing that, but we don't remember from where. So at one point it's been introduced before, and so when we hear it or see it, it reintroduces it and puts us back on the path that we need to be put back on. So thank you, Christy, for that.
Thank you, Ellie.
May I interject something on that? Thank you so much. The part that's coming up for me at this moment, it's one thing for ourselves, the people we know, but we're also facing in a social system and now a world system of so many people clashing on their ideas of what religiosity is. And that religiosity is on that left side. And they aren't making the transition so well to the right side with compassion and empathy, and also understanding what does the ultimate message mean to go to love or your heart. So it's like, okay, this is the moment of remembering, when we read those things, or we see the ill ability of someone out on the street, or whoever's talking to us at any point in time, they're not being able to reach that side. So it brings our compassion and empathy into action to know we are working with the brain. Yes, our heart's there, but that part of the brain has to discern what we're doing, and the both sides are being able to do that. And people are, and I live with one actually living in the left side so much that it's very difficult to have conversations at times, that I have to be more defined about how something occurs. But I appreciate this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's interesting how this conversation, the divine order, we end up moving this direction. Bob prepared his own, the words in his own remembrance card or whatever, and he at the last he left this poem. And before we go into our silence, I'm going to read this poem because it fits with all we're dealing with here, and then we'll go into our silence to see what the divine has to say to each of us. So this is what he gave us as a last thought. I give you this one thought to keep. I am with you still, I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glint on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the sweet uplifting rush of quiet birds in circle flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not think of me as gone. I am still with you, still in each new dawn. The tradition is we light the center candle, and there are words, and I believe both Lori Kay and Ellie know the words. Can you say them together? It's up to you to start.
Yep. Baruch atah Adonai
Adonai Eloheinu
Eloheinu melech ha'olam
Olam
asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlich ner shel Chanukah.
Okay, thank you.
Can I translate?
Can one of you translate it?
Blessed
ahead,
are
Ellie.
you. Okay. Blessed are you, our God, ruler of the universe, who makes us holy through your commandments and commands us to light the Hanukkah lights.
This will be in our front window for the next 8 days, and each day we will light another candle. It is something we can do to honor the miracle that happened, and from our standpoint, to honor that God miracles all of us, and that each of us is a miracle, has been for all of our years here, has been before we came into this body, will be when we depart this body. A miracle, workers of miracles, representative of the divine love that lifts all of us up. Be blessed, everyone. Walk in peace, share love this week.